of State Government Policy, Finance, and Elections Committee, today being Monday, May 11th. And our first bill on the agenda today is Senate File 3226. And we'll move Senate File 3226. This is authored by Senator Housley. And so Senator Housley, welcome. Glad to have you today. We'll have you go ahead. And members, just to let you know, this bill isn't here in its entirety. This is mainly a particular provision. If you're on the bill, looking at line 1020 of the first engrossment. All right, Senator Housley, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and members. The bill before you, Senate File 3226, is a bill that will allow for third-party testers to give driver's license examinations. We've all heard the stories in the newspaper and on the news channels about kids trying to get their driver's license and booking the appointments 3-4 months out after they have finished their behind the wheel. They've said that DPS is way backed up, and if the kid fails their driver's license exam, they have to go back and up their appointment, which then takes another 3 to 4 months. So what this bill does is just to allow for third-party testers to also test for the behind-the-wheel examinations. They would have the same requirements, and they would have oversight by the same authority, the same criteria as the state examiners do. And the Commissioner of Public Safety would also oversee these third-party testers. So that's the gist of the whole bill. It passed through transportation. Wisconsin, just this last week, there's all of these kids that were supposed to start getting their driver's license in March are sitting there waiting, and now it's really affected the ag community because these farms need these kids to get out there and be driving. So in Wisconsin, they just passed that the parents just have to sign off that they've done their behind the wheel driving hours and they've taken their written test. So parents are just able to sign off. So this is a sort of a no pun intended middle of the road sort of bill that we have third-party testers allowed for these kids to take their testing through them. And that's the bill, Madam Chair. I'll stand for some questions.
Thank you, Senator Housley. We're going to go and first do our testifiers. And in this case, we have the DVS Director, Ms. Emma Corey. Welcome, Ms. Corey, to the committee. And if you want to go ahead, again, even though we're under Zoom, say your name and title, and then proceed on your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, committee members and Madam Chair. My name is Emma Corey, and I am the DVS Director. We, the legislators, as well as DVS staff alike, want to make sure that we are best preparing our drivers to be as safe as possible on our roads. Some of the considerations I want to reiterate, I did at the last time we testified on this bill, some considerations rather than concerns regarding the current bill is there is a need, the bill right now, the way it's written, there is a need for clear criteria for third-party testers. It is important for us to consider background checks and 5-year driving records of these third-party testers. There is no clarity right now on fees and regulating what would these third-party testers charge private citizens for these tests. There is no requirement for a security bond right now to ensure that if there is some wrongdoing, that whether it is the team that is taking that service or the DVS, but looking at a security bond, there's certainly a concern around conflict of interest. When you think about conflict of interest, testing and training. If you have the same driving schools that are training students and then testing and saying, yes, you are eligible to get this license, there's certainly a clear conflict of interest that needs to be worked through. I think there is room for it to be worked through, but it needs to be worked through. We speak from experience. We are talking about testing fraud and concerns from Colorado, from Utah, from Tennessee, from several states that have done third-party testing. If we decide this is the way to go for Minnesota, it is imperative that we have the time and the ability to engage the appropriate internal, external subject matter experts to design a program that appropriately addresses some of the concerns and considerations that I just talked about. I also wanted to share with the committee that OLA has just chosen the exam stations as one of their audit for a study this fall. And so rather than go into this and go forward with this now, I would strongly recommend that we see what the OLA comes up with and what is it that they have to offer and what are their suggestions. And that would be this fall. And so next session would be a good opportunity to revisit this. Also to roll out this as stated in the bill for August 1st, 2020 would not be adequate or wise, especially with the current DVS resources completely stretched with us wanting to come back and address the backlog. So a program like this will require us to design it, to train the third-party testers, to certify them, and then to audit them. And so we're talking about a program that can be developed potentially, but needs to be done right for Minnesota. One of the areas, in fact, that I would ask the legislature to consider is if we are talking about third-party testing, our CDL program is strictly regulated by the federal regulations. That would be a place to start with third-party testing and consider third-party testing tester program with the CDL licenses. And that might be a first place to start. I would welcome the legislature working with us on that. With that, I'll stop and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Corey. Senator Housley, you want to comment to that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think having third-party testers would decrease the backlog that they have right now at DVS. We already had the backlog the last few years, and now with shutting everything down for this last 2 months, doing third-party testing starting August 20th would really, really help to get those kids on the road and helping with their farms where their parents need them. We don't need them to be. Now I can only imagine how long the backlog would be if they sign up to get the test whenever that does reopen. So I think this would help with the backlog.
Okay, Senator Housley, questions, members? Any questions, members? Okay, Senator Housley, Ms. Corey, I have a question. Who's that?
Senator Howe.
Oh, Senator Howe, go ahead.
Yes, to the testifier. So if we don't do third-party testing and we don't just allow 16-year-olds the opportunity to drive for a short period of time without a license, what do we do? What is DVS's plan to overcome this backlog and shortfall that we are facing and have faced in the past? What is the plan to go ahead if we don't do this?
Ms. Corey?
Absolutely. Madam Chair, Senator Howe, absolutely valid, justified question when we think about the canceled tests and the importance of rescheduling. But I would like to highlight really quickly and then also ask more for the opportunity to follow up with the plan. DVS we have just developed a plan for addressing CDL and Class D road test backlogs. So I would like to get that plan in front of you all as soon as this afternoon, if that is okay with you. But a couple of high-level points from that. Our intent when we come back is to come back to the most efficient possible approach to taking tests. Central to that is a strong and solid communication campaign for the public so that they know what to expect and that they can come in and we can get those tests done. We want to consolidate to 15 locations these will be locations across the state. So we will be servicing every corner of Minnesota, but we will be consolidating down for maximum efficiency to 15 locations. That way we will have all our examiners in those locations providing the main focus will be backlogs and the testing. What we will be doing also is moving all other transactions other than tests to our deputy registrars and our deputy our DL agents, so that if you're coming in just to renew your license, we're asking you with the communication that will go out to go to the neighboring deputy registrar office. With there, the exam stations, the 15 DVS locations will focus on tests. We will do 600 at the minimum per day, and hopefully more. So that is our focus. But this plan is a four or 5 page document. I'd like your permission to get it out to you, Madam Chair, right away after this meeting.
That is fine, Ms. Corey. It's just a bit disappointing, I will say to you, when I think of serving in HHS and other places, and how many accommodations have been made for agencies and for departments. We've given them authority to waive and to consolidate and to extend times and timeframes. And in this situation, I'm very disappointed. I would have thought that you could have worked with Senator Housley as the author to come up with language and things that you're talking about. But on the other hand, it's very disappointing that I'm seeing DVS here seeming to just simply say no. And even though we have been very generous and offered in so many ways to make things work, and our kids, these kids, those are the same ones that are not having a graduation ceremony. They're not able to do so many things. This one is actually in the power of government to do. This you can do. And certainly it is very disappointing that I would say at seeing how the lack of constructive kinds of ways to make these things work. And we've seen this in so many other areas. So I will say it's disappointing. Senator Housley, we're very short of time. The particular line 1020 has to do with request for reconsideration issue decision. This has to do with a notice of cancellation or denial issued in regards to the third-party testing. So in writing to the commissioner and issue a decision within 30 days, that seems very reasonable to me. Do you have any other comments, Senator Housley, as we proceed to action on this bill?
No, Madam Chair, thanks so much for allowing this bill to be heard in your committee today, and I really appreciate it, and our committee's support.
Okay, thank you. With that, members, I don't see any other hands up or anything. We'll proceed to a vote. So on the motion of Senate File 3236 being referred to
Finance.
To the Finance Committee, on that motion, all those, by the way, you need to unmute and make sure you are on video.
Madam Chair, I do have my hand up.
Who is that?
Jim Carlson.
Okay, I haven't called for the vote yet, Senator Carlson.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you had your hand up to speak. I'm sorry, I did not. Senator Carlson, it did not show up on my screen, so I could
Okay.
not see it. There it is. All right.
Oh, good.
Senator
Okay.
Carlson, you go ahead, and then after that, Senator Jasinski.
Thank you. I guess I need to comment that one of the problems we've had, and I'm on the Transportation Committee as well, is that we have really stretched the DVS budget here. We've not allowed them to put on people to handle calls, and we've had to handle the calls for them. We've thinned out just about everything they did when we instituted Real ID. And so right now, I think the assistant commissioner here is saying that they need a little time to do all of the setup, and August 1st is not real. So if we're talking August 1st, we're just not being real. We didn't hear her. And that's something that is real, is that we have to set up a lot to get done before this could even possibly be done. That's one point. The second point is that, this hasn't even had a hearing in the House. And so I think that we have to be really a little bit more, let's say, consensual with the House. And I have the letter right here from the 4 leaders that says that we have to have all of these things finalized by Saturday, May 9th at midnight. Otherwise, they may not occur this year. And there's no movement in the House, and none of us have had this conversation. So I think there's another side to this, and I guess I'll just let the vote fall as it may. But I have to say that I oppose this pretty strongly because there hasn't been any agreement with the stakeholders.
Thank you, Senator Carlson. We're having a committee hearing, and so we will act as a committee at this time. Senator Jasinski.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I'm in favor of the bill. We did it
Touch
for
base on it.
school buses, and it worked tremendously. It finished up the backlog or reduced the backlog so that school bus companies weren't losing drivers to other jobs because they couldn't wait to get tested. It's proven to be a great way to do it. Assistant Commissioner Coring also just commented about reducing the number of locations. As I've made it very clear, my areas want more because Otana is not served. It's a city of 26,000 people who has no testing in that city. I think it's something, and again, going back to being shut down for 2 months, there is going to be a huge backload of kids that need to get their driver's licenses to go out and get their jobs and do the things like that they need to do. So I'm fully in support of it. I think it's a great bill, and it's something that we need to get our kids tested in a time-sensitive manner, not waiting out 6 months and going 100 miles to a different location to get tested. So I'm in support, and thank you for letting me testify.
Thank you, Senator Jasinski. Mr. Erickson, could you please explain how these activities are funded through the general government? My understanding is that DVS is funded through fees. Could you let me know what kind of funding? Did I get that correct, or is there something else involved? Mr. Erickson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm afraid I won't have a very good answer for you. That's part of the fee structure that lies outside the committee's jurisdiction. But I do think you're broadly right that those are fees that are coming in through some sort of special revenue fee and then are appropriated out through the Transportation and Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. I appreciate that clarification. And Ms. Corey, maybe you can clarify it since you're heading up DVS at this time, or at least this portion of it.
Absolutely, yes. The DVS is funded through the drivers fund, which is, of course, it gets the revenues from our driver's license transactions and fees. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Corey. And so just to remember, folks, people pay for this service. They pay for it. It is not something that comes out of the general fund. It's a fee above and beyond other taxes. I also understand that there's a fairly substantial balance in that budget area. I would appreciate knowing what that amount is, because I think Senator Jasinski makes an excellent point. We are a big state, and to expect some people to drive exceptionally long times for this testing when they are already paying fees for this. So I'd certainly like to see this be done in a more geographically fair kind of a way. Also on my testifier list at the time, Senator Rest, Senator Westrom, and Senator Howe. Senator Rest.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I just request a roll call on this vote.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Next is Senator Westrom. And then Senator Howe. Senator Westrom, unmute yourself.
Madam
There you
Chair, just a quick question. I would agree with Senator Jasinski's comments as well. But could you recap for me? I missed the beginning about the Class D. Is that your common driver's license, or is that also Class? And then are you? How soon are you going to be able to resume these driver's license tests?
Yes, that has been covered, Senator Westrom, and we won't be going back. We have a very short committee time. But Ms. Corey, if you could respond quickly in regards to that to Senator Westrom. Ms. Corey.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Westrom. Yes, we intend to resume. We are currently already doing a modified version of commercial driver's license tests as we speak. We have completed 141 CDL tests during the stay-at-home order. We expect to do another 110 commercial driver's license tests, road tests in this week, the week that we are in right now. We intend to resume Class D testing, that is the general license that you and I have when we return from the stay-at-home order.
Thank you, Ms. Corey. Senator Howe.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess the rest of my comment was going to be, I've got a bill sitting on my desk to exempt the folks from taking a road test at all, as long as the parents and the drivers training folks would sign off on it. So I think this is a much better answer, and I definitely support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Howe. Okay, members, with that, a roll call being requested and a roll call granted. The clerk will take the roll.
Whose motion is it, Senator?
The motion, sorry, I will renew the motion again. Senate File 3226 is moved and recommended to pass and be sent to the Senate Finance Committee. Okay, the clerk will take the roll.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Aye.
Senator Graham.
Aye.
Senator Kiffmeyer, you have to unmute.
Senator Carlson.
No.
Senator Swedzinski. Senator Howe.
Mr. Carlson, could you unmute everybody?
Aye.
Howe's aye. Senator Kwasniewski, we didn't get your vote because you're on mute.
Senator Jasinski.
Aye.
Aye.
Senator Lane.
No.
Senator Newman. Senator Rest.
No.
Senator Westrom.
Yes.
Senator Swedzinski.
No, okay. All right. I saw
Senator
it.
Newman.
There being 5 ayes and 4 nays, the motion is adopted and the bill is passed on to the Senate Finance Committee. Thank you very much, Senator Housley.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And members, will go to our second bill on the agenda. Senator Pratt's Senate File 4504. And members, to let you know, Senator Pratt, I'll move your bill, Senate File 4504. And we will also have an author's amendment. And Senator Pratt, is this your first hearing?
It is, Madam Chair.
Okay, then we'll consider this an author's amendment. Do you, what amendment is it? What number do you have on your bill?
Madam Chair, I believe it's the A4 amendment.
Okay. Okay, I will move the A4. This is a delete everything amendment to Senate File 4504. This is an author's amendment. All those in favor say aye. Or raise your thumbs up or.
Aye.
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 Okay, all right, motion adopted. Senator Pratt, to your bill, Senate File 4504 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senate File 4504, members, as amended, represents an agreement between multiple stakeholders regarding the upcoming horse racing season. And while the bill is relatively simple, it is important to the horse tracks and their ability to operate. There are really just a few key provisions in this bill as we work through it. The first is that it permits the track to use part of the purse money reserved for the horsemen to be used for capital improvements designed to benefit the horsemen. It increases the fee on existing advanced deposit wagers to 2%. It permits the Racing Commission to use the increased fee to reduce the reimbursable expenses paid by the tracks. It gives the Racing Commission the authority to waive the minimum number of racing days for licensing if a track can't run due to circumstances outside of their control. And all the provisions that I've just described sunset on December 31st, 2021. So it's only in effect for the next 2 racing seasons. Madam Chair, I think we have some testifiers, but this bill has been worked out with the stakeholders. I'm not aware of any opposition.
Thank you, Senator Pratt. And we do have 3 testifiers. The first one is Mr. Steve May. Mr. May, are you there? You will just say your name, please. Mr. Steve May. Let's see, Mr. Steve May. Let me check on my. We have 989, 343, and 555. I'm not sure if that is Mr. May on any one of those lines. Mr. Carlson, is anybody muted in such a way that they cannot unmute themselves? To the next one, Mr.
Okay, Madam Chair, I am off mute now, so I should be able to talk. This is Steve May from the Minnesota Racing Commission.
Go ahead, Mr. May, and give your testimony.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and the rest of the committee's time. My name is Steve May, the Executive Director of the Minnesota Racing Commission. I'm really here just to answer any kind of questions that might arise from this. The Racing Commission is not opposed to this bill. We think this does provide an avenue to provide some relief to our racetracks here in Minnesota for this year and next year. All this is related to COVID-19 and the shutdown of the racetracks and the lack of wagering that will be occurring at those racetracks that generally provides their funding. In a matter of time, I'll kind of just step aside, and if you do have any questions, I'd be happy to address those things.
Thank you, Mr. May. Our next testifier is Mr. Joseph Newton. So, Mr. Newton, if you can speak up at this time so we know you're online.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Newton. Mr. Newton, you're not coming through right now.
Madam Chair, Joseph Newton with the Racing Commission General Counsel. I'm here to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Newton.
Thank
Our
you.
next testifier is Mr. Court Holton. Mr. Holton, you can go ahead. Say your name, your title, and then present your testimony.
Court Holton. I represent the thoroughbred horse industry in Minnesota. And I know we're all supposed to be brief, so I will be, and very few witnesses ever are. But I'll start with my ask is that you pass this bill along. And I have one point to make, and that is that I represent all of the people who own the horses, train the horses, work in the stalls, et cetera, et cetera. The income, the revenue for a horse racing operation comes totally from live participation of its fans. If they're not there, we don't have any revenue. And the same is true with the card club. If nobody's playing cards, there is zero revenue. Unlike professional sports teams like the Vikings and the Twins, they charge ticket prices, they sell hot dogs and beer and that, but their big revenue comes from television and advertising. A bill together originally that had figured out a way to let race fans participate at home safely and without violating any off-track betting provisions. Unfortunately, that provision is not in this bill. There's really not a reason for it not to be. We all know this is going to be a financial disaster that we hope we can survive. Nevertheless, the HBPA position is in favor of putting this bill on the governor's desk. It has short-term, significant, positive ramifications for the racetrack. We will be sort of a payer in. We are okay with that. We know that we all have to survive together. Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for your help and your previous help. And Senator Pratt, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Mr. Holton. We appreciate your testimony. Members, any questions? Otherwise, we'll go to closing remarks from Senator Pratt.
Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Jim Carlson here.
Senator Carlson, okay.
Make a comment. You know, this is the way this really should go. We had conversations starting last week. I had conversations with Senator Pratt, and I think he did an excellent job in covering all of the bases here, getting bipartisan agreement, bicameral agreement, and all of the stakeholders agree as well. So this is a dream come true to get this through in such a short time here, and I think it's very important to get it to the governor's desk so that they can at least salvage their season. So thank you to Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Senator Carlson. We appreciate your comments. Members, with that, we have concluded our testimony and the presentation of the bill. Senator Pratt, I see your hand up.
Yep, thank you. And Senator Carlson, my gosh, you're making me blush. I do want to thank my co-authors, Senators Benson, Bach, and Thomasoni, along with Representatives Tabke and Albright. Senator Carlson, this wasn't me. This was a team effort to get this done, and I appreciate the work by all the senators and all the representatives. And I hope we can move forward. I believe this is going to be on the House floor today, and so hopefully we'll be able to take it up by the end of the week.
Thank you, Senator Pratt. Appreciate your comments. Members, at this time, this bill is being laid over. Senate File 4504, just in case, to be sure that this bill is laid over. Members, thank you very much. I know there are several other committees that right now are looking for several of us to be in those committees. And so with that, please stay tuned. There may be other hearings as we go forward here and other issues that may come up. So please stay tuned as for any information in your emails or anything like that. With that, our State Government Policy Finance Election Committee has completed its agenda today, and we are adjourned.
Hey, members, if you're on still, just understand that we will probably be having another hearing on Wednesday. I will send out the notification as soon as I have more details. Just letting everyone know.
Thank you, Paul. We are adjourned then, members.
Thanks for the heads up, Paul.
Mm-hmm.